Hey guys, Darren Kai, coach of Wiser Sports, and welcome back to another team review post round 22, where we saw a bit of a carnage sort of round, I guess. There was a lot of 70 scores and below, where it was pretty much the round you just want to try and avoid all these bad scores. Really not searching for those ceiling scores this week because there was only two scores of 140 plus, and hopefully you did have them both. But besides, there was a few other 130s and stuff like that, but not too many lying abouts. But how did I go this week? I scored a 24-22, which put me another round rank of, around that 2,000 mark. I seem to be hovering around this spot. Can't really get inside the top 2,000 in a round rank so far this season. But it still meant that I moved up 200 spots. I don't know how I'm doing it, but I guess the main thing that a lot of coaches above me would have had, like the likes of a Lockie Ash, who obviously went pretty poorly, or put it politely, terribly. 29 points is just unreal at this time of year. For someone that has been so consistent as well is just mind-boggling. So luckily did not own him. I was looking at trading him in at one stage. So luckily I did pull out of that trade at that time. But yeah, that's just super unfortunate for those that have jumped onto him. And there is now question marks of what do you do with him? Do you just hold on to him hoping that he's all good to go, or do you jump off? From an outsider looking in, I'd probably just jump off. He's got good money on his head, and you can get to someone that's fairly reliable. If you don't have the likes of a Sinclair, he's an easy one you just jump straight onto. If you don't own a Rosie because you jumped off him a couple of weeks ago, again, he's probably another one that you could jump onto as probably a bit of a safer options. Just for example, right? So I think there are other options around him that are pretty safe. If you don't have a Lockie Whitfield, again, very similar. You could probably jump onto him. So here's one that went pretty poorly. Another Petrarca went pretty bad as well with a 71. Obviously, he was someone that I spoke about trading out last weekend because he has been going pretty poorly. He still has a pretty tough matchup in the next two, so I would still advocate for that. Josh Dacos was another one. What did he have? I think it was 64. Yeah, 64. That was on the Thursday night, so we knew about that one fairly early. But yeah, that was pretty poor after what he has been fairly consistent most of the year. That's by far his worst score this year. Or sorry, equal worst score of the year, I think. So yeah, there's another one. Mills with the 73 is meh, but would have been, yeah, it's pretty bad for the defensive line where most of them are going this 100 plus. So again, he would have been a nice one to trade out. Caleb Daniel just did the 70, exactly what we sort of expected. But yeah, it would have been nice to have a bit of a better one. Brayshaw continues to be pretty poor, Oh, whoops. Let me do that. My bad, guys. I don't know why that refreshed. Brayshaw again, really poor, and I guess the question marks around, is it time for him to move on with, a tougher run? Is someone that I've looked at moving on previously, but just ultimately backed him in because of the namesake. He's been one of the best midfielders for, the best part of 2 or 3 years now, so I've always just backed him in to be better. Even with some good matchups, he just seems to have failed. So with a tough matchup against Port Adelaide, 76, disappointing. He comes up against Brisbane Lions and the Bulldogs. Again, does he go? If you're in the luxury position, obviously he can. To finish off, though, you also had a Sam Darcy with the 71. Anderson got tagged for 65. That was something that we sort of foreseen coming with what Ollie Lord did against Caleb Sarong the week prior. So, yeah, I can't say that one was too unexpected. But then to finish it off, Curtin, someone that a lot of people were looking at and a lot of people that had brought him in over the past couple months, he went 55. So, a lot of bad scores. So again, it's probably more about the matrix and trying to avoid all the bullets rather than finding the real big ceiling scores this week. So there is a lot of stuff that we need to address, which I will touch more on in the trades video. But for me this week, I'll just go through my plus threes and negative three now. So plus three, I think you just have to go to the likes of a Jack Sinclair. For someone that hasn't been amazing this year with the rise of Nasai Wanganeen Miller taking a lot of the limelight at the moment. To put up a 146 in a very good matchup, probably should have given him more credit in terms of captaincies and stuff like that. But yeah, to have that big of a ceiling with 30 touches, 11 marks, 6 tackles, even kick the goal, was awesome to see. He's not super unique, 30%. He's definitely not unique, but yeah, for him to be able to do that was impressive, and I'm really glad to have him in my team. So he can take the +3 this week. But my -3 probably has to go to myself again. 2 weeks in a row, I'll give it to myself. Just because of my trades. I traded out Zach Merritt. I think a lot of people did that, and I will still back that sense that the process was there. We looked at the fixture, we looked at the upcoming tag, and we went, nah, I want to jump off that. We had the data to say that Mullen's a really tough tag, kept Butters to 30 points or round thereabouts. Zach Merritt is just a different kind of beast, though. He put 100 more points on top of Zach Butters' head in that same tag, got it done, was the highest scorer of that game. So if you were a holder, you definitely had bigger balls than I did, because yeah, it's definitely not something that I foreseen him having, and I still say the process is okay because I still think he cops two more tags if he were playing. That's the other thing. Unfortunate for those owners that did hold, he unfortunately copped a bit of a broken hand now, so he'll be out for at least this week and potentially next week. So if you are a holder, unfortunately, that is a forced trade, in my opinion. I would not be holding him just because there is still that, uncertainty of will he play next week? You don't know. And also, the time of the year, luxury season, you want to just try and get the most amount of points as possible. So, jumping off Zach Merritt is fairly easy to do that. So, he is unfortunately a forced trade. But unfortunately, I did trade him out to Jeremy Cameron. That did drop me about 30 points. It's not massive. I know a lot of other people did like a merit to a Ash. That's obviously heartbreaking stuff, especially if you're fighting for a hat or a car or whatever up there top. That just ruins seasons very, very quickly. 100-point swing is not helpful, but 30 points there. And then it sort of just made me back off doing my second trade. Now, in some ways it was a good thing, some ways it was a bad thing, because I was originally looking at trading Zach Butters, but with him not just with Wagner not being named for Freo, I switched that up. I was like, no, he's gonna be fine now. I'll hold him. He did bounce back with a 122, so happy I did that. But with that being said, I was also looking at trading out a Caleb Daniel going up to a Lockie Whitfield, or even a Callum Mills up to a Lockie Whitfield. I could have taken Callum Mills up to Ash, which is the trade I was alluding to. I could have done that. So, and that's what I was sort of leaning to at one stage. So luckily I didn't do that. But all these sort of things, I could have gained a few more points every now and then. But in the end of the day, I just traded out Liddy, downgraded him to Bo Allen to have a bit of a cash grab. Now I have 300 and something K in the bank to be able to do some moves this week. So ultimately, I'll give the -3 to myself because, I was a bit of a pussy and didn't use my second trade to try and maximize my scoring as possible, rather taking the safe option, which, yeah, maybe hasn't worked out as what I wanted at the stage. So that is my +3 and -3. Captains, I did go the Baz in to Messiah Wangani Malira. I ultimately just took the Baz 120. At the end of the day, I wasn't going to take it because I said I was going to take a 125 at a minimum. But before the Messiah game, there was an interview with the coach. I can't remember his name, from Richmond. But he said they have processes in place to tag him, whether it's from a team system or player base, and that just was enough to scare me off. That they've got a plan to limit him, so I just thought his ceiling wasn't there. Really wasn't worth risking the 120 to try and get a 130 at the end of the day, and he ultimately went 2 points less. So at the end of the day, it wouldn't have mattered too much, but got on the better end of that one just. So that's what happened with the VCCs. I already showed you my trade reviews. That's all done. But quickly reviewing some important players, I guess. Holmes was pretty putrid. He was started okay in the first half, but that third quarter just rattled him a fair bit. He got caught holding the ball like 3 times in a row in the span of like 2 minutes, and that from that point on, he just was nowhere near it. I guess he just had a bit of a sook and just didn't really want to get anywhere near it. So wasn't his day, so that was unfortunate, especially for my captains. I had him at number 2, so that definitely hurt. I guess that's probably about it. Callum Mills, it was okay till halftime, but really just slowed down again. I think You could trade him out, but again, he has a better run on the way home with the Cats and the Eagles, so he's not a must trade in my opinion. I think there's definitely other players that go before him, but again, he's definitely a possibility. Dacos was pretty poor, obviously on that Thursday night. Just is obviously battling a fair bit of hip issues at the moment. He started on the bench, getting rubbed down by the physios, just really battling the hip injury at the moment. So I guess something to watch and see whether he gets up or is he due for a rest at some stage. Does he just push through for the next 2 games, hoping that Pies scrape through to the finals? I think they make it, obviously, but they do need to probably beat Melbourne to definitely secure that. Just to get in there. But yeah, he definitely is battling something, so I guess it's something that we got to be aware of. And with a tougher run against the Crows this weekend, I'm not expecting anything huge from him. And if you're in a super luxurious position and you want to get very unique, you'd obviously could jump off him. But against Melbourne, he should be better. Yeah, just again, he may get rested at that game if they think they have it in hand, right? So be aware of that. Bontempelli with a 120, very happy with that. Matt Rao with a 116 as a bit more of a unique option, definitely did the job. Didn't get as many tackles, but 30 touches, definitely happy with that. Tougher run now, so yeah, hopefully he continues his good form. You know, how many tons is that? It's like 10 in a row. Unreal. So yeah, hopefully continue that on. Jordan Dawson was the highest scorer of the round. And that was probably just mainly due to the Eagles pushing the Crows, which I guess no one really saw. We thought that was going to be an 80 or 90 point slapping, but at the end of the day, the Eagles nearly got up in that game, so Jordan Dawson had to play a big portion of that game. 14 tackles, 26 touches, 91% time on ground, so he is just fit as a fiddle at the moment, getting it done, hitting the scoreboard as well. So yeah, probably another 3 Brownlow votes for him in that game, I would say, quite simply. So I guess in terms of Brownlow, something to be aware of if you're a betting man. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have him my captains there. Brayshaw, I already spoke about. Butters, I already spoke about. I did loop McKercher because I was a little bit concerned with the history up against the Giants in terms of, those serious ball movers having lower scores. Like a Blakey had a 70. I'm struggling to think of a few others that had it before him. So I thought this was sort of a 70 incoming for him. So I wanted to loop between him and then look at McCarthy. But ultimately, I was happy with McKercher's 93. So I just took it. Rankin, his second half to the save that score was massive. He was on, I think, 16 points at halftime. Came through with the third quarter with 58 points and then 34 points or something like that. In the fourth, he just was massive. And obviously the last game of the round just absolutely skyrocketed my ranking because he was a bit more unique option. 23%, but I think a lot of that is Ghost Ships. He wouldn't be that owned in the top 1,000, I wouldn't have thought. So yeah, he was very, very good to see him fly home. Brody Grundy is the other news I probably should have spoken about at the top of the list. Obviously, he is a forced trade this week, obviously with delayed concussion symptoms late in that game. Just copped a bit of a knock, and that's unfortunate. Unfortunate score as well. Only the 14 touches, 4 marks, 0 tackles, and 1 goal and 28 hitouts was not what I was hoping for, and does end his massive run of tons. So it was going to happen eventually, but yeah, unfortunate way to happen. But unfortunately, yes, he is now forced trade, and a lot of the discussion around this week is who is the option do we go to? We've got, English, Royal Marshall, trying to think of who, even a Cherry, if you want to go a bit more unique. There's a lot of different options that we need to dive deep into. Max Gorn, if you aren't an owner of him as well. There's a lot of options that we need to digest, so we'll get into that a little bit later. Then the forward line, I'm really happy with how the forward line ultimately performed. All the Geelong guys did quite well. I was a little bit disappointed with Jerry McCameron at 104. I was expecting, a 120, 130 plus, quite simply. But when you kick 4 goals, 5, I guess you're going to have a bit of a lower score there with a 104, and he's a bit of a problem this week up against Sydney, so I will look to hopefully bench him because I do think that's probably a 30 or a 40 incoming. I do think they restrict him quite simply to like 1 or 2 goals pretty easily. So I'll look to put him on the bench as easy if I can this week. So stay tuned for that. And that's pretty much about it for my team, I think. I did have um, McCarthy there as well with an 88, which he looked very, very good in that game as a more of a midfielder. So yeah, if you still own him, definitely a decent 23rd option. But that did move me into 762 rank. I guess I broke my target already with top 800. Now, do I move on to 500? Is there a chance? I'm not too sure, but we'll keep pushing and see what we can do. So on to this week, that left me with a bit of money in the bank with my trades, and I have just gone probably straight down bat. Gone to Brody Grundy, to Roll Marshall, who I do think is the best option of the ruckman at this stage. I'll have to do a little bit more of a deeper dive, but it's pretty much tossing up between the likes of Tim English and Royal Marshall for me. Tim English obviously has West Coast. I do think it's a very good matchup for him. He has gone 130s, 140s against them in the past. Hasn't played them this year, but yeah, definitely is a very good option for him. And he's been in some ripping form. But I just think the run of Marshall is a bit better, and I think the likes of Heath is going to be dropped after a 9-point game, only 2 touches and stuff like that. So I do think he'll have the run and the solo ruck roll. So I do think he'll have the better run and better scoring output with 142, 135. So I think that's just where I'm going to go this week. So he's a very viable option. And then I've just gone, with the money I had in the bank, I've gone Tom McCarthy up to Josh Dunkley, having a bit of a luxury there. Having the 400k in the bank to be able to do that move as a bit luxury. So that is my 23rd premium. So means I have a 7th forward now. So if I move Butters back in, that's my midfield. And means I have that 7th forward to be able to loop between. So I'll be able to loop between a few guys this week. I think the plan is at this stage is to look at Butters. Obviously, he has the likes of Cooper Lord. Is it Cooper Lord? Yeah, I think it's Cooper Lord against Carlton. He's obviously kept the likes of Anderson and Sarong to 65 points each. So I'm expecting a 60 score from Butters, or if not even worse, because we know he's a much easier tag option than a lot of these other guys with that 34 2 weeks ago. So if you have the luxury and you want to trade him out, go for it. But I think what I've learnt and what I want to be using a bit more is the fact that we saw what Merritt was able to do in a tagged option. So there's not always a guarantee that they're going to absolutely stink it up. So I think it's better to hold your premiums if you can, loop them in, see how they go, and if they do badly, then you always have that backup to fall through, and hopefully the likes of Butters will be good for me next weekend. Finish off the round 24 up against the Suns. Good matchup, and hopefully can come home with a very, very decent score. So that's just my thinking there, but I can encourage other people to trade him out just with a bad score incoming. So not everyone's going to have the 400k in the bank to go from a McCarthy up to a very good premium, maybe up to a 800 or 900k player, but not all the way up to the top line. All right, so. But to also speak about Josh Dunkley, I am ready to be hurt again. For those that have been a long-term viewer, obviously I did trade him out many, many months ago. Back, I think it was right before, just after his buy. Sorry, just at his buy actually. And since then he has gone massive. So I'm sure I'll trade him in, and he goes back to his 70 ways. Just what he does for me since I've faded him back in 2023. Since joining the Brisbane Lions, he's just not liked me. So I'm sorry for all those that do own him. I will potentially break him this week if I continue to trade him in. So, but back to what I'm looking at doing this week: looping Butters, seeing how he goes, and potentially looping Rankin, and then I'll be able to, field the likes of Bo Allen. He plays the last game, I think, and then be able to shuffle things around by using a Kennedy to take one of the scores, and then obviously hopefully jumping off Jeremy Cameron if Franken does okay. So just a little bit of looping games there with the 23rd premiums. I think I'm okay with the back line. I think Mills, again, probably gets a bit better result this week against the Geelong. They are a bit of an easier matchup for defenders, so I think he's fine there to hold. But the midfield is looking pretty strong with a lot of over $1 million players. Obviously, forced trades are not any fun, but yeah, that's just how the team's sort of sitting now. So hopefully you guys had a good weekend. I certainly did, but didn't think I was going to have a good weekend. I did end up losing my cash league, so even though I did well, okay, it wasn't enough, unfortunately. So bittersweet, I guess. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Anyways, I will jump into trade outs and trade ins in the trade mode video later this week. So hopefully you'll stay tuned for that. Besides that, have a good day, and I will see you then. Cheers, guys. Bye.